you're well known for telling your story about your origins, but just tell the listeners now, where did you start? Where were you born and bred?
Yeah, let me rewind right back. I was born and bred. I'm a Brummie in Handsworth. Famous for the wrong reasons, Handsworth. When we talk about Handsworth, we don't talk about the good things.
I hear all the time about what a community it is. That's the good thing I hear about Handsworth.
Well, it has changed over the years, but when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, fantastic, a lot of communities, nothing like it used to be. We helped each other out. Someone robbing your house, someone there to help you, someone robbing your car, someone over there, look out for each other. But, we've moved on so many years, things have changed.
A lot of family, did you have a lot of family around you growing up in Handsworth?
I'm one of six. We had a big family, mother and father. My mother died very young, she died at 42 years old. When I look back at it now.
How old were you?
I was 9. And my younger brother was 6.
Oh, terrible to lose your mother so young.
I was quite a tough kid. I remember my younger brother started to cry. I said, what are you crying for? Not really realising until years later. I think it affects me more now in today's society than it did when I was a youngster. Well, I took the positives and said, you know what? I can iron clothes. I can hoover the house. I can clean the bathroom.
Is that what happened, though? You really had to take over domestically?
Well, our sister became like a mother figure to us. She was only 15 at the time. So you kind of, take my hat off to my sister. She took a big role. She left school at 15, started doing all, helping all of us. But then we were still learning, doing our own thing as well, became quite independent. And, I can still do stuff like now. Being on your own, it doesn't scare me. So I can do all them things.
It's a resilience, really.
That's right.
That's what it built. I mean, you were in a city environment, though, right? I mean, you must have seen some things and some trouble.
Well, we went through the 70s, the National Front Marches, the BNP. We experienced them as young kids. They're going to send you back to your own country. We're getting scared around 7, 8, 9 years old. We've seen 2 sets of riots. We've been through the mill. Having lost my mum as well. I look back at it now, I think, bloody hell, we've gone through a lot. I made good of myself.
Was there a time when you were going to go down the wrong route? Was there any time where that was on the cards?
Possibly. Being in a city, Handsworth, we were strict. Our dad, he was disciplined. Even though we didn't see a lot of him because he was out all day. He was at the foundry, working 18-hour shifts, coming home, has a cup of tea, have a couple of hours sleep, and he's back at the foundry. But if he looked at me, if I'd done something wrong, I'll tell you what.
You'd know about it.
I'll tell you what, I would.
So that did keep you on the straight and narrow?
It did, and then finding something I fell in love with, and that's where kickboxing came into it.
So tell us, where did you first hear the words kickboxing?
Well, being a youngster, no one knew back in the 80s what it was. Back in 1980 when I walked into the Handsworth Leisure Centre after seeing a demonstration in the local park with a guy called Howard Brown, who had been, a big part of my life, been mentoring me, coaching me, travelling with me. He became like a father figure. My father always said to me, look at him as one of your gods. You got to respect him. And we're still, after all these years, 43 years later, we're still the best of friends.
When was it that you thought, hang on a minute, I've got something here that's a bit different?
Yeah, well,
it's going to take me further.
Yeah, being from the inner city, I could fight already. My coach always said, you can fight already. What I can do is make you into a better fighter than what you are. And obviously, you got to follow, strict regime. At 16, when I left school, I went straight into the gym. And that became my living. I was training, and I started coaching.
It was your profession.
As a young apprentice, I call it. And when I turned 20, I went full time and was coaching. My first club was actually in Harborne. And then I went out into Sutton Coldfield in 1986. I'm talking. I was only a young kid. No one really taught me how to teach. And I just started coaching, doctors, lawyers.
So you still weren't in a position where you're thinking, I'm going to take this to world champ. You weren't competing at that level.
I just started.
So you're quite late, really.
18 years old, I had my first. 17, 18, I had my first. We lied, really. I said I was 18. I was 17. We lied. And my first experience, went one round in the central Birmingham. Second fight, went to Austria. Was the third fight. I went to Austria and I got knocked out there. Coming back, I was more scared to see my dad. I said, Dad, I got knocked out. In 1986, I went over to France for a 2-day championship. We went over in a minibus. Tough times it was. When I went in a minibus, travelling, really tired. I had a bit of a cold and flu as well. I remember that first fight. I was sitting on the bottom rope, getting absolutely beaten. I went back to the corner. Howard said, Kash, keep your chin down. And I knocked the guy out with a head kick the second round. Went on to fight a Canadian, an American, and then a French guy in the final. So, you know what? The best feeling in the world. I always wanted to be world champ. That was my world amateur title.
Because you've achieved something that I know you went on to win it 4 times, but to get that first one, you've achieved something that no one's ever going to take away.
Well, that made it different. I was the first Asian in the UK to world champion in the contact sport. Before Prince Nassim and Amir Khan. I was the first, and so I'm quite proud of that. So I never doubted myself. I always knew in the back of my mind, one day I'll be world champion. I never looked at it as, what if I don't make it?
So you were always quite self-assured in that way.
I was never a big head, but in the back of my mind, I always thought through
You were determined.
hard work, dedication, determination, I'm going to do it.
And you did do it. You did it 4 times. And then, of course, you've been inducted into the BBC Sporting Hall of Fame. You are known all around the world for your kickboxing prowess, but also for your work that you've done in inspiring the next generations as well. And I know that's what you're really passionate about.
Well, I've been coaching like nearly 37 years, the different areas. And what really brought it to light, I was running a gym for like 12 or 13 years. And when COVID came along, we closed the gym and I started doing more open sessions in the Hamsworth Park, free to anyone from any community. And that's where it really came to light. Even Boris Johnson, he took me to a Downing Street. I carried the baton around there in the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, I know.
And he even wrote a letter personally to my own home address.
Wow. I mean, but that's because you are an absolute idol to a lot of people. If I was to ask you what you think your greatest achievement is, what would you say?
Well, producing champions and, just coaching and changing people's lives. We've been having a lot of awards for it's not about awards, it's just seeing the person change. People come in, they're drug addiction, they've alcohol addiction, discipline, behavioural problems, they're the bullies, some people got, so it's all walks of life. You can change people's lives, and we do it without realising. Just by teaching a group, you're inspiring them, you're mentoring them without realising you're doing it. What
is still to do? Kash the Flash, what is still on the agenda for you?
I've done a biography, and mine is a true life story. I reckon a movie, something like a movie, would be good.
I can imagine. You know what? That is, I can imagine Hollywood getting hold of that.
Well, you never know.
You never know. You're not telling us something. I don't know. He's something on the cards potentially.
Wow.
But this is, an extraordinary story, and we know that you're a brilliant mentor to people in the West Midlands, and we know all over the country, all over the world. So thank you for talking to us, and thank you for being a friend of BBC Radio WM as well.
Thank you, Kath, and I will be back.